Hello and welcome back. This is Sherri with Heart and Soulful in the studio today to talk about old books, one of my great loves. If you're just joining me for the very first time, welcome. I hope if you enjoy this video, you'll give me a thumbs up and click on subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. If you'd like a notification when I post something, click on the little bell and you'll get a notice. Today, like I said, old books is the topic. And I wanted to share this video because I recently went on a vintage shop thrift store hunt, and I always look for old books. I've been collecting for much longer than I have been doing book arts and paper craft. So I have quite a collection and a nice variety that would make it easy to kind of share this demonstration about what to look for. If you're shopping, if you're new to this and you're shopping for old books that you want to take apart, and maybe you also want to use them digitally in collage and that sort of thing, what falls under copyright and what is now in the public domain. So I'm going to kind of put these aside. Some I've already taken apart. And then at the end, I'm going to kind of just show you the couple different two common types of books that I find and how I approach at taking them apart once you've decided that you can do that. So the first thing I wanted to cover was copyright, because I had that question come up when I shared my old books. And I'm not an expert, I'm not an attorney, I'm not giving advice. So I want to say that up front as a disclaimer. And I encourage you to do your own research, but I thought I would share with you, since I've already done some research, I would share with you what I have done and then actually take each book and show you how I've decided that it's in public domain or not. And that way, it's kind of just like showing you some examples. And that way, you'll maybe feel more comfortable trying to figure it out on your own. And like I said, do your own research. So I started just researching online. I did share this little paragraph with the gal that had asked about it. You know, again, this is actually just something, I did not type this up. It's cut and pasted from something that I found online. And it was actually, I wish I had printed out where it came from, but this was for my own use, so I didn't know I'd be sharing it at all. And so I don't know the date. I remember it was quite a while, years ago, so it's not actually current as far as the date here. And I'll explain that in a future one that's actually a current one. So this was the first thing that I had found. It's just something handy that I can carry around with me if I want. All works published in the United States before 1924 are in the public domain. Again, this 1924 date is because this was done a few years ago. So it's actually currently anything before 1927. So anything published before 1927 are in the public domain. If it was published after 1926 would be, but before 1978, it's protected for 95 years from the date of publication. If it was created but not published before 1978, then the copyright lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years. So you would have to go back and research when that author died and then add 70 years, and then it would be in public domain. There are also some other things here. If it was published between 1924 and 1963, you have to check with the Copyright Office to see whether it was renewed. Laws changed over time. And so, you know, maybe at one point, maybe now you only have to copyright, you don't have to renew it. So it's again, just that 95 years or 120 years, whatever it is, after the copyright. There were periods of time where you had to renew it like within the 28th year. And I'll show you where I found that. So this was just a really basic overview. You're really safe, obviously, if you're going to really old books, which is kind of what I look for anyway. But maybe there's a gardening book or a dictionary or something that has pictures in it that you like, a textbook or something like that. Maybe there's a book and it is newer and you still might be able to use it because it may be in public domain because of expirations of a copyright. So there's way more detail than just this. So I continue to do some research. You just, you know, plug in some keywords into your search and all kinds of websites will pop up. So I found this one next, and it had another kind of some bullet points here. And it was, again, works published after January 1923, but before January 1st, 1964, and renewed during the 28th year, that's where I learned about that, is protected for 95 years from the date of publication. So you have to kind of, look at your periods of time. If you have something that falls in between there, the rules may be a little bit different. And again here, works created before January 1st, 1978 and published before December 31st, 2002 is protected until at least December 31st, 2047. So if you're looking at newer books, you need to kind of have these dates in your mind. And you can just, write little notes that you'll understand on a piece of paper to take with you when you go shopping. Like I said, always look for older books. So I know in my mind, I'm safe if it's anything after or before 1927. If it's after that and I just really love the book and might want to use it for something on my own, not, reprinting anything, I may still buy it. And if it's actually, even if it's just, maybe it's 1928, I know I only have to wait another year. Okay. So you just kind of get those bullet point rules and, have that handy for yourself. This one I really did like. This one was from Cornell Libraries, and it was more detailed, and I really liked how they had it laid out in these charts. And this one, it's not just for books, but also for recordings and that sort of thing too. So I went ahead and printed it all out. Not that I need it for that, but even architectural works and things. So this one just has a nice kind of chart. And it says works registered or first published in the U.S. before 1927, because this is more current than the other one that I did. So 1927 is what I look for. And if it's before 1927, there is no copyright because it's expired. If it's between 1927 and 1977, and if it was published without copyright notice, which is the, it says copyright and a date, or the little C with the circle around it and the date, then it's in the public domain because they failed to put that notice in the book. And I have some examples that I'm going to show you. And then it just kind of goes from there. I didn't highlight more details, but it breaks different things down. So, if it was published between these years and didn't get registered within the 5 years that was required during that period of time, then again, it's in the public domain because they didn't comply with the formalities. So you just have to kind of look at all those little categories. That's why I really like this one, because I may end up with a book that is between these periods of time. And that did happen in my case. These were between 1927 and 1963, published with notice, but the copyright was not renewed. It needed to be renewed within that 28th year. And then here again, published with notice. Published with notice and renewed, then you have to wait the 95 years, and then this was published with notice, you have to wait the 95 years. And then it changes, this is another period of time in these conditions, then it's a different number of years. So you kind of have to look at the conditions. And so I really liked how this one was laid out. And this is the one that I kind of have been using. So I'm going to try to go through and kind of show you what I've shopped for, what I might want to take apart, and if I'm allowed to digitally, reproduce those. So this is one that I had long before I did book arts, we're going to call it. But it's a really pretty spine. It was already falling apart, so, maybe I want to take this one apart. But this is a Mansfield Park. I love Jane Austen, and so anytime I saw a Jane Austen book, I didn't really care what condition it was in. I love that it's old. So this volume, it has some great drawings in it. So now that I see it, now that I'm doing book arts, I'm looking at, maybe I don't want to take this one apart because it's kind of, a Jane Austen book. I might not want to do that. But I might want to, this is a small volume, so it would fit for me to scan this in its original size and share it digitally, because it is really pretty. If it's within my, copyright public domain. It's been repaired. I even like that, Like I said, it has great drawings. So I look at for the copyright to see if I could maybe scan anything in this one. And this one is a first edition. This one says it's a first edition with illustrations from 1897. So obviously this is in public domain for the illustrations, I guess. But this volume was published in 1902. Again, it's within the date that it's in public domain. So if I want to scan anything in this, I can. But I may not want to take it apart because just for me, it's a Jane Austen book. Okay, so I'm going to scan some things in this one, and that way I can share them in digital arts. This one is another one that's in really bad condition. It's really old, you can tell. So I'm just always drawn to things like this. This one's Ben-Hur, The Tale of the Christ. And this is also really old. This one, I don't know if I want to take it apart or not. This one was published in 1880. So obviously it's in public domain. And, you know, it has some handwriting in it. These, and I just love the frayed edges. So again, this one I may or may not want to take apart myself. You know, if I take it apart, it's because I want to actually share some pages with you, or because it would be easier for me to scan them if they were out of the book. So these are almost falling out anyway. I could actually just take out that first signature if I want, and just like having this little poem here. This would be beautiful to have this scanned and shared, right? So this one may or may not come apart. I just kind of like, you know, even the other thing that I like to scan are like any kind of indexes, that sort of thing. So this might be kind of fun. And this will lay flat enough, even with the wrinkles in it, to scan if I want all those wrinkles in it. I can always iron them out if I don't want to. But that's kind of how my mind works when I'm thinking about taking something apart. I love the thought that this was in someone's hands at the very beginning of the 1900s, you know. Who read this? Who had this? You know, I just think about that sort of thing with old books. So I haven't taken these apart. They can both be scanned. Here's another one. This was in really bad, pretty bad condition. The spine's, you know, really worn. And this one's Crabbe's English Synonyms, Revised Edition. So it's in pretty good shape, you know. But these pages, these are all pages that are fun to print on. You know, I've shown printing like botanicals and things like that on these kind of pages. So this one I maybe would want to take apart. You know, the pages are in good shape as far as they're not, you know, cracking or breaking. That's kind of the other thing I look for, I guess, is what kind of condition the paper is in. And I have an example here. Like this was an old book and I loved the color of the patina of the pages. And I did obviously take this book apart, but the problem with it is that it's so brittle that the pages break. So this book I use for, you know, like if I'm gluing something and I just need something behind it. It's nice thick paper. So if I need to maybe sturdy some other book page, I glue it to that. And because this is nice and thick, it makes a nice weight for journal cards and that sort of thing. So I have a whole book of these really brittle pages. But depending on what you're going to want to use them for, if you want to actually use them as a page in your journal or something like that, you don't want ones that are going to be brittle. You want ones that are in pretty good condition. And these are kind of that way. So this might be a good book to take apart, you know, leaving the folio intact, and then using those and sharing those in bundles and that sort of thing. So this one, let's see when it was published. This one has a copyright of 1917. So again, it's fine. I can scan things. And again, sometimes things are easier to scan if they're out of the book, you know, if you want to get them very flat. What I do when I don't want to take a book apart, but I want to scan something, is I put it on my scanner, and then I have some lead weights, but even another heavy book. I keep actually a very heavy, large dictionary by my printer, and that way I can set it on top, and it will press it down and make a better scan for me. So this is another one that if I want to take this apart, I can, or I can, you know, just leave it intact for a while. Sometimes what I do is I take apart books so that I have a stash of what I need and then I just won't decide to take something else apart until I maybe need more book pages or something. This is another one. This one is Great Expectations from Charles Dickens. And it's obviously another one I picked up because it was in bad shape and I might not mind taking it apart. So this is another one. I love, again, the patina of the pages, but I would want to check this one to see if maybe the pages crack, and they kind of do. This is very similar paper. When you feel it, you kind of get to where you know what will crack and not. It's very similar to this paper as far as the texture and weight of it. So I kind of, would check that and be careful. This one doesn't actually have a copyright in it, a copyright date. It was printed, but it doesn't have anything in here that tells me a date. So what I did, and I would do this for any book, especially classics, things like that, that might be of value, is search for them online. For this one, I plugged in Great Expectations, Charles Dickens, and I did the Book League of America because there was no date. I kind of wanted to know what year this might be if I could find out. When I did that, I found 2 listed on eBay. One of them had in the corner here, a lot of times you'll see in handwriting who owns the book, their name and a date, or maybe they were gifted the book. That can kind of give you an idea when it might have been published, because at least in the ones that I have, and I have researched the books that I have, that date is usually within a year or so of when that book was published, because somebody was giving it as a gift, and they got the book, it was new, and they wrote in their name and the date. So this particular one, I found exactly this volume twice in eBay. Once it was $12. One listing had it for $12. The other listing had it for almost $50. And the date written up at the top was 1947. So that kind of gives me an idea, how old this might be, if I want to take it apart or not, if it's valuable or not. Because sometimes you might think, oh gosh, this could be valuable. Why do I, maybe I don't want to take it apart. Because actually this one, because of how old it is and it has those first edition illustrations, this one actually I did find in good condition was $120. And that was at a book, like from a book collector, like an old book site. So this one's not in good condition, and to me, I may or may not care, I'm not going to go sell this for, nobody's going to pay me $120 for it anyway. But you might, like I said, if it's classics like this too, you might just check and see if it might have value before you tear it apart. The other kind of books, I like to collect classics, obviously things that are falling apart. The other kind of books that I collected, a lot of these were prior to doing book arts, like I said. One thing, this is probably some of the first ones I was collecting, and they're in beautiful shape for a reason, encyclopedias. So you can find encyclopedias all over the place because now we have the internet, and so people just don't, this is, when we had to do a book report, you had a set of, every family, if they could afford it, had a set of encyclopedias. Otherwise, you went to the library and you pulled those to do your research for your papers in school. This is a Swedish one, and I came by a whole bunch of these back when I was decorating. I don't know if, I'm sure you can probably still find these. I just haven't looked in years, but you could buy decorative books like this, beautiful books, by the foot. They were sold for the purpose of home decor. And so they're all in good shape. They were all mostly foreign languages and mostly reference books or encyclopedias because, again, they're in really good shape. So these are, I'm not sure, most of mine I think are Swedish. I know this one is because I just went and looked it up for you. So it's in great shape. I don't know if I could take it apart for an altered book. It would be a beautiful altered book, because it's in such good shape. It would hold up as a journal. You could do a craft project with it where you cut, and made it a secret box kind of thing. But I really liked this, even though it's in another language, and I kind of like having, just for the interest, having different languages even in my journals. But a lot of these have great illustrations and pictures in them. So those could be great for journaling too. So I might want to scan some of these, to be able to use. So again, I'm going to look at in the front here and see when this one is. So this one was published in Stockholm in 1925. And from my research, there was a category here for if it was published outside, works first published outside the U.S. This is by foreign nationals or U.S. citizens. Well, this wasn't. This is published by another country. I don't know their rules. So, you know, it just has some great pictures that might be fun to use and take apart and, you know, use in journaling. So this could happen with this one too. And the other kinds, I've always loved little books. So I have lots of teeny tiny books. These are some of my favorite. I'll probably never take them apart. I actually purchased them in this condition where all the covers had fallen off. And these are these little mini handy volumes of Shakespeare. I think the original set contained 13 volumes, and I don't have all of them, but I just love how they look. So those probably won't ever come apart. But these are cute little ones, and I had shown these are ones I recently, in fact, I'm going to do a demo of taking this type apart. But I just love little old books. Whatever my hobbies are at the time, I might collect old books in that similar subject matter. I have I don't know where it is right now, but I have like a secretary's handbook. I used to be a legal assistant. And so I would collect books like that, or penmanship books or that sort of thing. I also did a lot of woodworking and decorating and for repurposing and that sort of thing. So I had I found these that were really cute. So, stuff like this, I can look and see 1864. So I would need to find out if it falls in those categories. So my only, I guess, chance would be if it had fallen out of, its copyright expired, and it very well could have. So I'm going to say it probably did. But you go to the Library of Congress, you just look up copyright. I think it's copyright.gov, and you can actually find, there'll be a highlighted thing where you can click on online research or something like that. And then you look for the year. So I would look up 1964, and then you do a search of your keywords, title or the author, whoever published it, and you'll find this actual book, and you'll be able to see if it was renewed or not. So these probably weren't, is going to be my guess, and so these would be okay to do, but I would double check before I did anything with these. So, small books is another one that I like to collect. This one I love. I look for anything with a gorgeous cover. So this one would be beautiful. I don't know if I want to take this one apart or not. Sometimes I want to keep them together just for my own reference, even though I know I can go online. It's probably faster to look online. And that, I think, is kind of what has gotten me to finally be able to break down and cut up some books, because, nobody's ever going to maybe use them unless you're an actual collector that is investing in old books. But this one would be beautiful to do a cover. So if it's in public domain now, I may want to do that. So this one is 1944. So I would have to, and there's a 5th edition. So I would have to look this up and see. Yeah, see here, they were renewing these. 1944 is the most recent one. So I would have to find out if that's the last one. And, it hit that rule before. I have to look at it a little bit more detailed. If it hadn't been in the 28th year renewed again, then maybe it's expired. So this one may be expired. I just would have to do the math and look it up and see. So I don't know that I'd want to take that one apart anyway, but I might want to scan the cover, so you never know. This one, again, I probably would not take this apart just because it's a complete book and it's in really pretty good shape. It's the complete works of Shakespeare, but it has a beautiful cover. So I might want to scan this. So I would check the date. It is kind of coming apart here. 1937, it was a Christmas gift. So my guess is this is probably 36 or 37 that it was published. But look at it, has just great artwork. So if it was in public domain, even if I don't take it apart, it might be nice. 1936. So I would need to check and see about the whole, was it renewed? Because that's in the period of time that it would have needed to have been renewed. To see if it's out, if it's expired, then I can actually scan some of this, because it's nice that it's done, it's written in play form, so that's kind of a fun one too. So I might want to do something with that one. And then ones I've already taken apart. I'll show you here. These are two that I found on my recent hunting. So I've already taken them apart. One of them was the outline of great books. And I've taken it apart because I was at the other studio and I wanted to start putting those packages together. But I didn't actually do too much research on them first as far as being able to scan things. But while I take them apart, knowing that I might want to, the things that I might want to scan are title pages, because those are fun. Part of the reason is if you're doing them in journals, there's still room to write on if you wanted to even kind of leave them like this. They're just kind of cool. You could put a pocket on the front if you wanted, you know, just as this is using this as a background. But I like that there's empty space. You can add things and decorate those up instead of just over text like this. I also save like the page that might have been blank here in front. I saved those. I have a whole pile of them somewhere, and I think it's not here on my desk, but I save lots of blank pages, you know, from all the different books. You know, they have name, you know, people's handwriting on them maybe. But I save all these because it's old paper with a patina. And that way, if I want to scan just to have a bunch of different patinaed old papers, then I have that. The other thing that, you know, this was a pretty paper that I might want to scan. I save those kind of things. I have an old typewriter, and so maybe I want to type on it and use those as like little labels in my book. So I save any kind of old blank pages out of the books that I kind of hoard those. And then let's see, this one, like I said, it was 1936, and I did look it up on the Library of Congress, and it was not renewed. So it falls within that period of time where they needed to have renewed it. And so like on here it says, where would I find that? 1927 through 1963, published with notice, but copyright was not renewed. It's in the public domain due to expiration. So that's why this one was handy, because it breaks it down into whether or not it was renewed or not. So this one I can scan. So I save like any sort of, you know, lists, indexes. So this one was kind of a nice one to cover anything with photos on it. So I'm going to save and maybe scan, you know, those pages. I went ahead and left them together, even though this is maybe something I wouldn't scan. That way later on, if I want to use it in a signature after I've scanned this, then it's still usable in that way. Contents, I like those. Again, I have some blank space on that too, so that in a signature, then that's kind of nice in a journal. So I kind of hoard some of these pieces. And they may end up, like after I've scanned whatever I want to scan, they may end up then in, you know, in a bundle that you can get. So I just kind of, you know, kept a bit of these. Again, some of the photos and things like that I like to save. And then use them digitally. Like I said, I'll do a video later on showing how I've maybe used some of them, the scans, once I've used them, so that you can kind of see. And again, also obviously scanning the cover of this too. So that was one that I took apart. This one I love. This one actually could be valuable, but this was a textbook from a school library, so I'll show you why. They had actually, you know, there was a number here, kind of in a marker that's faded. But again, I loved, even though this is in really bad shape, I didn't mind taking it apart for that reason. And again, it was from a high school. And I think I used this book in high school as a reference book because it was so familiar to me for a report. And I always loved mythology. So again, I'm drawn to classics, you know, reference type books that I may remember from school, that sort of thing. So you're going to just kind of collect whatever appeals to you. But again, this one is one that I've already actually scanned the cover and, you know, pulled out some pages. The thing about this one, there's a lot of these stamps throughout the entire book because it was a school, you know, they don't want anybody to steal the book. So, but there's some neat things in it. You know, I can scan it and just take out that part if I want. Some people might like that it's there, you know, little things like this. So I'll be scanning these things. Again, this one is copyright 1898, so it's fine to use. So I've pulled out all the indexes and contents, and there's index of illustrations. Those pieces might be nice to scan. I pulled out this much to scan. Obviously, I'm not going to take the time to scan all these, but I was kind of doing a quick pull apart of my book, and this is just how I do it quickly to sort things. Anything that had a photo, which because it was a school book, there were almost every page had photos. But so if a page that had a photo, I kept it. Now, I may not end up scanning this. It has part of a stamp on it, so this could end up in a bundle. You know, I'll go through it again and then actually kind of fine tune what I actually want to scan. But this one had such great, the other thing that I save for my first going through of the book when I'm tearing it apart, again, is anything that has a lot of white plain space on it. I save those, you know, to just, again, same reason I mentioned before. They're good for journals because you can write on them. Like this one, for example, I might not like that it has this, but I could stick a pocket there or decorate that part. And then that would be really cute in a journal. So I'll do a second go through of all of these, you know, and kind of pull out. But look at these illustrations. They're just beautiful. They're going to be great for, you know, take out just different ones for digital art things, you know. So I just love them. This is one of my favorite ones, Mercury. So it's just, you know, just so much fun. So I'm going to be, this will take me some time. They also had some, you know, color, the photos too, black and white photos. So I'm going to go through this one again, but this was a great find for, I think, I don't know, $5. So that one, I will be scanning some of those. And then I think that's all for the books. So I'm going to just go through some of these really quickly. These are, again, ones that I have saved for whatever reason, are extra pages. So I had already taken all these books apart, but I always save the title, you know, the title pages and things. That way I still have reference until I decide, you know, I'm now like a week later. I've got to go back now and look and make sure what ones I can scan or not. So like this one is 1901, so I don't have to worry about this one at all. So anything out of this book is fine. This one, 1935. So again, I needed to go through and check with the Library of Congress and see if that was renewed or not. And if it wasn't, I can go ahead and do it. So that one is one to check. This one was a book from a reference book. And again, this one has all these different copyright dates, you know, because it's a textbook, so it was published by different companies. And actually, it was a compilation from other books, it looks like. So they took penmanship, they took vertical penmanship, all these different chapters were from different copyrights from different companies. But this volume itself was copyrighted in Great Britain. So I don't know. I mean, it's old anyway, so it's probably okay because the last copyright in here anyway is 1913. So I'm going to say that this is fine to scan also. This one, Hernani by Victor Hugo. It's in French. And its most recent copyright is 1929. So it falls between the, let's see, it was in the U.S., so I think it falls between the, again, if it was not renewed, then it would be okay to copy too, because it falls within that between published, well, it was first in 1891, published but with notice, but copyright was not renewed. So again, it was done in 1929. I would need to see if it had been renewed, if it, you know, if it's okay. I kind of have a feeling, oops, sorry, I was probably not in this frame. I have a feeling it was probably not reading. I think I looked this one up and it wasn't, so I think this was good to copy too. This one, another little one, And this one, I think I did look this one up in the Library of Congress because it was without notice, does not have a date on it. And so I believe that one also, and I can't remember now, I didn't write it down. When I did look it up in the Library of Congress, what year it was, it again was okay to do. So all these ended up, you know, just by me kind of looking at the book, you could tell it's old. I would go ahead and buy it even though I didn't know the date, just because I liked the book. I would go ahead and feel comfortable scanning this too. And then this one, lastly, is an Encyclopedia of Gardening, 1957. So this one, you know, to me was kind of questionable. So I did look it up, and it was last copyrighted in 1956. So that I need to look and make sure it falls within that criteria, because it is older than the 1963. So if it had not been renewed within the formality period of time and all of that, then it would, I could copy that one too. So you just have to look at each one. And if you have a question, go to Library of Congress, you know, and see if you're able to, if it's in the public domain or not. So if you go for old books, you don't have to worry about it. These are some other pages. These came out of a book from the 1800s. And they had already been pulled out of the book. I haven't taken the book apart, but I just love how old and all the, you know, rough edges are. So things like this are nice to scan too, just to use in your backgrounds and that sort of thing. So that's why I kind of like taking some apart, so that they're easy to scan and that sort of thing. Then as far as how to take books apart, I've done a couple here just so you can kind of see. These are newer, so I wouldn't be scanning these anyway, I think, because they're, you know, they're not very old, but they're damaged. You know, they had been water damaged, and I just, you know, I don't need them for anything in their fullness. You know, they have, some of them were atlas, so I really like that. Then I have little maps and things, a spelling dictionary, and then just a regular dictionary. So I've taken these apart already. I'll probably iron them out. I can tea stain them more if I want. I can put them in bundles and just give them away like this. Use them, you know, for my own crafting and that sort of thing. So I liked that I took this apart. So I've already taken the cover off of this one, and I'm going to show you the easiest way I found to get all these pages out. This one, they're all kind of just glued in, and so they're kind of harder to take apart intact than like ones that have been sewn in signatures. So I found the easiest way to do this. I pulled apart a couple of ones that would just fall off. And that one's coming off. But you end up with all this glue at the back once you've taken it out of the cover. I try to leave the cover intact because now I can use, these would be really cute, you know, to make my own little mini journals. And these, because they're so new, if they were old and grungy, because I like old and grungy things, I might leave the cover intact like I did this one. And I may decorate this a little bit more, but I like this old grungy look, you know, and it may not be your thing, but maybe you even just use it as a background and add more things, which I may do to this. I haven't decided yet, but I may, you know, put a frame around it and some little embellishment or something too. But when they're new like this, I really don't, that's not my style. So I would probably actually paint this in kind of my, I would kind of paint it in one of my kind of altered, more art kind of journal book kind of things. So, you know, newer things, that's what I like to, if it's already old and grungy, I just, you know, I love old books, so I want it to kind of still know what it was originally. So to get these pages off of here as big as I can and intact, I take a metal ruler. This one has cork on it, so I'm going to turn it upside down because I want it nice and flat against my pages. And then once you've taken off a few, you can butt your ruler almost right up to that glue. And then I just take an X-Acto knife and just do several. I don't have a mat under here, so I'm trying, my tabletop's destroyed already, but I'm trying not to go off and hit it. So I'm probably pushing harder at the top, but then I would turn it around so that I'm pushing harder on that side, you know, and getting that line in good. And then once they'll just come off like this, and they're nice and, you know, pretty straight. And then you just keep going until you get the whole book taken apart. So I'm going to do that with those. And then I have all these cute pages. And again, these are very new looking, you know. So depending on your style and what you're using it for. But like I'll save all these maps for travel journals and that sort of thing. And because I like distressed things, I'll probably coffee stain these or, you know, make them look kind of more washed out too. So that's how you take apart a glued in pages book. And then other books, I've kind of have some in different stages that I had started working on already. There. So I wanted to show you kind of what they look like before they're completely taken apart. So once you've taken apart the cover, usually I'll just go in. Some of them obviously were in such bad shape they were probably already coming apart. There's this buckram in here. This kind of looks like cheesecloth. You can just cut that with an X-Acto knife. You might have to take off, like say this page was glued here maybe. You might have to pull that off first so that you can kind of see where that is. Because this one was already torn, but if it's intact, I don't want to cut through this because I want my book, if I'm going to use it as a cover and sew in my own signatures, then I don't want to cut this. So you want to be careful. Taking that first page off makes that easier. So you pull that off, and then you're going to cut in there. Once you have your cover off, it's going to look like this now, just all of your pages together. And there's usually some piece of paper, you know, here on the back. I try to pull that off if I can with that buckram, but it's, you know, it's going to start falling. It's going to start coming apart. And the really old books I love might actually have used actual book page instead of just this paper. This is old book page, which is how this book was. And so I loved that about it. So I saved that little piece and used it as part of my decoration for my spine. So I just, you know, maybe it's just me geeking out too much, but I just love old books. So I save bits like this so that I can, you know, maybe add labels or sentiments or whatever to it. And this is kind of nice for just a layered background of that. So I save those little bits. And I won't pull all this off now, but I do have an example of what it looks like once you get to just the glue. So I've taken all the paper and buckram off, and now I just have most of it, my signatures. And you can kind of see they're just sewn in a Coptic stitch, which is, you know, you have a signature. These are all signatures. You add two together, and then you just keep adding them. And this is good for a journal that's going to just be written in. Maybe you're not putting a lot of embellishment, or like an art journal, so that it lies flat. So this is kind of nice type of stitching for that. But normally when you're making your junk journals, that's not what you're doing, because you're adding lots of stuff in between. And I'll kind of show you that too. So to take these apart, I'll start taking apart, and then I want to kind of, for the beginners again, go over a signature. So you're going to just try to see where they round over is a signature. And a lot of times I'll accidentally get the page from the previous one, because the glue was put on after the signatures were sewn together. And so they might have seeped through those holes. And so it's kind of harder to pull apart and see. So like, I think this page might be long there, hard to know. So I'm just going to kind of pull on it and see if I can get it to start pulling away. So you can kind of see that little gap forming there. And I want to kind of be careful, because I want to cut these. If I just start ripping, I'm going to rip my signature from one hole to the next. So this takes a while, you know, especially if this glue is real stubborn. And I do end up messing up some pages, you know. So you see all that glue still on there. So this outside folio is going to probably be destroyed. So for terminology, if you're brand new and you haven't understood what people were talking about, is each of these sections is a signature. And each signature is made up of folios. So I pulled this one apart. Let me show you one that is already taken apart. So this was a book with a couple of extra. And each of these signatures, I've already taken them all apart so you can see how much glue I was able to get rid of. And you see all these little threads because I took them apart just like I did that last one. So I would take one of these, probably easier to do than this one, but I should show you the hard one. So in a perfect world, these came off pretty easy and there wasn't a lot of glue. When you open that signature up to find the center, you can see where all these threads are. And I haven't taken these off yet. Sometimes they are stubborn because they're a little bit of glue seeped through those holes and the threads are pretty stuck in there. So this one has 3, but I think one got ripped off. So this particular book, just because I've done them a lot, each signature had 4 folios. So it'd be 4 pieces of paper that were folded in half, stacked together, and that makes a signature. So on this one, this paper of this book was thicker. Okay, so they maybe used only 4 folios per signature. This was a dictionary of gardening. So it's got dictionary thickness of paper, which is thinner. And so they actually have a lot more than 4 in here. I'm going to try to find the center. This one has a lot of glue seeped through, so it's being a little more stubborn as far as getting it open, but there it is. So this is the center, which doesn't look like a center, and it's because there's so much glue on the back here. So if I could get this peeled off, it would be easier. But see, when you do that, it's very brittle, but hard, and there's a lot of it. So this one's, and it's really hard on your fingers. So you might want to wear gloves for ones that are this, it almost cuts you. And then it's kind of easier once you get maybe that outside one that's a mess, or maybe not. Okay, so I got more of the glue off. I'm going to work from the inside because it's easier as far as cleaner. But you can see how these threads are going to be stubborn because they're glue seeped through. This is with much thinner paper. But I have those kind of at least loose. And then I'm just going to very, very carefully, sometimes you have to go from one side. If you have trouble, go the other side. And now you've pulled apart one folio. So you have to do that with each signature. So you can imagine these dictionaries and large books take a long time to do. I mean, I spent days getting those few books apart. So you just keep doing that until you have all these different little folios. So I'm not going to sit here and do all of that, but that's kind of how you take apart your books. When I see the question, how many pages do you put in a signature? That's going to depend on how you're going to put your journal together. So if you're doing, well, like this is an altered book, so this is not a good example, but you can see that if you're going to put a lot of junk in your books, you need gaps in between your pages. So this is one that I put together. This is not from a recycled book cover. I made this cover, but it would work the same. But you can see how much space I've left between my signatures because I'm putting lots of pockets and tucks and things like that in there. So how many pages you have in each signature is going to depend on the book that you're designing. This book, if you look at it, you can see that this signature actually looks bigger than these two. So I spaced them that way in my book because for me, and I'm trying it to do every journal a different way just to see what I like better, is I made these signatures and decorated them and did all the sewing to completion before I put them in my book so that I could see how much space I needed. That way I have a better chance of making my book close. Otherwise, I always end up putting so much stuff in there that they never want to close completely. So that's a look too. I like my journals to sit like this on a shelf, and that's why I do the folded heart, just because it makes me want to grab it and go back and look through it again. So that's my little spiel on old books. So I hope if you like this, give me a thumbs up. Like I said, if I didn't answer all your questions, please leave them down in the comments and I will try to answer them before the next video. The next video I think I'm going to probably do 1 or 2 more just on this book and book page subject matter, because I'm going to be doing the kit where you're going to get actual book pages. I want to do a video on maybe some ideas of what to do with all these original book pages, just to get some ideas. And then I'm also going to be putting together a kit, a digital kit of the things that I scanned. And so I might want to do a video on how I'm going to use how I'm going to create some of my digitals maybe, and then what I'm going to use them for. So I hope you enjoyed that. Have a great rest of your day. Now go make something. Bye.